Everyone, welcome. It is 7 o'clock, and we call to order the monthly meeting of the Meridian Library District Board of Trustees. How about now? Better? Okay. Welcome, everybody. We call to order the monthly meeting of the Meridian Library District Board of Trustees, and welcome everybody that's here in the room and watching online. Our first item tonight is public comment. We give opportunities each month during this meeting for members of the public to comment on library issues to the board. However, nobody tonight is signed up, so we're going to go on to item number 3, which is the consent agenda. Our consent agenda consists of routine items that are likely to not require debate, discussion, or questions. And tonight on the consent agenda, we have the approval of the regular minutes from the February meeting, 2 job descriptions with very minor changes, and 2 policy changes, also very minor changes there. Are there any objections to passing the consent agenda? Hearing none, we pass it by unanimous consent. Which brings us to item number 4 on the agenda, the monthly financial report. Nick and or Emma.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I don't believe there's anything extraordinary about it. It's pretty run-of-the-mill. We're happy to answer any of the questions that you may have.
Sorry, I have to think about what my question was because I knew I had one. Chair Kohler, Director Grove, my question is about the payments to our partnering libraries for, I'm trying to find it right here.
Links expenses.
Links expenses. And can you remind me what the, why we're paying them? I forgot.
So it's essentially the easiest way is if there is a lost book and someone pays us, but the item is actually Nampa's, we have to give them their money back. It happens over the course of time, and we're trying to get it so that at the end of the year or a couple of times a year, Links will send out a true up rather than having everybody send money everywhere. We'll pay Links one payment, and then Links will pay so if we collectively owe $200 to everybody, we only write 1 check to Links, and then Links will write the 11 checks. Well, it'd probably be 5 checks because of how it all comes out. We're getting closer, but we're not there yet.
Thanks. That helps. I remember that now.
Okay.
Additional questions? Am I correct? Are we spending more money with Ingram and less money with Amazon these days, or is that for books?
For books, we've always spent.
Is that what okay.
We very rarely use Amazon for books. Okay. It's kind of a spot check. If we need something really, really quick, we have our preset prices with Ingram, and we get the library quality books.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Chair, I would add, we have looked into Amazon more, especially with the fall of Baker and Taylor in the fall. Once that company went under, a lot of the book buying powerhouses out there have kind of shifted, and so we've looked into the other services as supplemental to Ingram, especially because a lot of people who had relied on Baker and Taylor are trying to find other places which then put a bigger strain on Ingram. And so while we're okay, we're also making sure that we're diversified. We do, however, use Amazon for things like games and puzzles.
Okay. Thank you. If there are no additional questions, do we have a motion? We'll do this in 2 action items as listed on the agenda here.
I move that we approve the January 2026 financial reports.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Further questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
I move that we approve the disbursement approvals for January 2026.
Second.
Any additional item or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Up next is item number 5, our fiscal year 2025 audit presentation. We have a guest here that will talk us through this.
Test. Yeah, it's on. Wonderful. All right. Well, good evening. My name is Morgan Browning. I'm an audit director with Soren. It's a pleasure to be with you this evening to discuss the results of the fiscal year 2025 audit. My plan is to go over the reports that we issue. Then I'm going to review some financial statement highlights and then open it up to any questions that you have. So the first report that I'm going to go over is on pages 3 through 5 of the audit. It's the independent auditor's report. The report discusses management's responsibility to prepare these financial statements free of material misstatement. They're also responsible for establishing internal controls sufficient to prevent and detect misstatements in this report. So the key point I'm trying to make there is that the audit and the auditor is not the internal control. Rather, our responsibility is to perform the audit in accordance with government auditing standards and to express an opinion as to whether the financial statements are fairly presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. So the opinion that we're issuing for fiscal year 2025 is termed in our profession an unmodified opinion. It's, for all intents and purposes, a clean opinion. It's the highest level of assurance that you can obtain in the audit. It's the only opinion that I believe the Meridian Library District has ever received. So congratulations to Emma and her team for getting a clean opinion. So the next report that I'm going to go over is in the last 2 pages of your handout. It's a report that's required by government auditing standards. And there's essentially 2 parts to the report: internal control and compliance. As auditors, we're required to understand the district's internal controls, and we're also required to perform tests to ensure controls are implemented. If during the course of those procedures we detect design deficiencies or we have a lot of corrections, audit adjustments to the numbers that are being provided, this report would reference findings. The other aspect of this report is compliance. In accordance with government auditing standards, we're required to test compliance with laws, regulations, contracts, and grant agreements. So if we detect non-compliance as a result of those procedures, this report would reference findings as well. So for fiscal year 2025, I'm pleased to report that there were no findings noted for the Meridian Library District with respect to internal controls or compliance. Next, I'm going to touch on some financial statement highlights. I'm going to have you turn to page 7. Page 7 is the district's statement of net position. Focuses on net position in this statement, which is essentially the difference between your assets, deferred outflows, minus your liabilities and deferred inflows. So you can see the district's net position as of 9/30/2025 is $22.6 million, $22,622,701. Last year, that number was $21,038,928. There's essentially 3 categories of net position. You've got your hard assets, which is your land improvements, equipment, construction in progress. That is your net investment in capital assets. That number is $7.6 million as of 9/30/2025, $7,678,956. That number is up from last year, which was $7,010,633. You have a restricted portion of your net position, which is your restricted pursuant to your plant facilities levy and your capital project fund. That number is $5.1 million as of 9/30/2025. That's last year that number was $5.3 million, so that's pretty consistent. And then you have a liquid portion of your net position, which is your unrestricted net position. That number is $9.8 million as of 9/30/2025. which is up from the prior year number of $8.6 million. You can see the district's assets were $42.8 million. That's very close to what it was last year. Last year was $42.2 million. So you have not a whole lot of change. The biggest portion of your assets is your cash and investments, and those were very consistent with the prior year balance. You can see your liabilities were $10,026,098. That is down from the last year's number of $12.1 million. The main reason for your decrease is a $1.2 million lease liability payment to Zions that you pay. You also have a net pension liability, which represents the district's proportionate share of Percy's unfunded net pension liability. If their number changes, then our share changes. So that number went down from to 1.7 last year. That number was 2.3 million, which accounts for the most of the decrease in your total liabilities. So moving to page 8. Page 8 is your statement of activities. It shows the changes in your net position, your revenues, expenses, and changes. You could see your change in net position for fiscal year 2025 was 1.5 million. You had expenses for the district were 9.7 million. You had a little bit of charges for services and grants to cover those, but your net expense was 9.5 million. And then you had taxes and earnings on investments of 11.1 million to cover the cost of running the district for fiscal year 2025. Those numbers are very comparable to last year. General revenues, you can see on page 8, is 11.1 million. That number was 11 million last year. Your expenses are 9.7 million. Last year, that number was 9.4 million. So, and overall, your net position increased. So very, very comparable to the prior year. So those numbers have long-term assets and liabilities in them. Moving to page 9, these are kind of a similar statement, but more closely to how you would look at the district. So the district, from a board review perspective, has a general fund and it has a capital project fund. And you're looking at cash and receivables, and you're focused on fund balance. So this page 9, shows the fund balance for the district as a whole, and then disaggregated between the general fund and capital project fund. You can see your total fund balance was 17.1 million on page 9 at the end of the year. That number last year was 16.1 million. You can see your fund balances are broken out into various categories. You can see the general fund has non-spendable fund balance of 108,000 that's tied into prepaid expenses. It has assigned fund balance for capital repair and replacement that's in a designated, the board has designated in an LGIP account of 7.1 million. And then you can see the unassigned portion is 4.8 million. That number last year was 4.2 million. That's roughly 55%. The 4.8 million on page 9 is about 55% of your total annual expenditures. I call that ratio like a budgetary cushion. So that's over half of your annual expenditures is in unassigned fund balance. The same ratio last year was 54%. So you guys maintain a very healthy unassigned fund balance relative to your expenditures for the year. And then lastly, I'll look at briefly at page 11. Page 11 shows your revenues and changes in fund balance. You can see your total revenues as a whole were 11.3 million. Your expenditures were 10.2 million, and you can see the increase there in fund balance of $1,087,000, which occurred during the fiscal year. So you can see your expenditures for the various categories and the revenues from the various sources. Most of your revenues is, of course, taxes. So with that, I want to pause and open it up to any questions. There are more schedules in here and more financial statement notes that we could spend time on and go, and especially if you have questions on them. But I want to open it up to any questions that you have about the audit. Overall, it's the best audit you can get, from my perspective. Clean opinion, no findings, healthy numbers. So yeah. So any questions you have, I'm here to address.
Questions from trustees?
Mr. Chair,
Josh, go ahead.
I just had one question, just so it's clear in my mind. The unassigned fund balance that you mentioned is a highlight of a strength, carrying 6 months of reserves essentially. I just want to verify that's not the earmarked funds to augment the Cherry Lane renovation project. Those are in the assigned, the $7 million there.
Mr. Chair, Trustee Cummings, that is correct.
Awesome.
Yeah, the balance that he just referred to at 55% of our annual budgeted expenditures in the general fund is our general fund reserve. And that we do keep healthy. We have metrics on that. And actually that healthy metric just helped us increase our Moody's credit rating. So we are proud of that reserve.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Morgan, on page 9, you talked about the fund balances.
Yes.
What is a non-spendable? What's an example of a non-spendable fund balance?
So some of your assets, for example, you don't have inventory, but some places have inventory. But you can't spend inventory. It's just you can consume it. You know what I mean? And a prepaid expense is another thing. You pay an insurance or a software premium for next year, and you haven't used it yet. You'll receive the benefit from that next year, and so we'll expense that the following year. But as of 9/30, it's prepaid, and so it's a prepaid asset. It's already been paid, but you can't spend it again. So it's non-spendable. It just gets consumed in the succeeding years. And so since it's not a cash, it's not an investment, it's not a receivable, it doesn't represent cash coming in. It's required to be reported in this non-spendable category to distinguish it from your unassigned, your liquid portion.
And compared to those amounts, it's relatively small.
Yes, 108,000 is really small compared to your unassigned. Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, there are some items that happen right at the end of the fiscal year, or right at the beginning of the fiscal year that just are unavoidable. iCrimp being a big one, and then the ILA conference is usually the first couple of days of the fiscal year, but you have to pay for that ahead of time. So those type of things are kind of balled up and
And they balance out from year to year.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Morgan, anything else you want to go over?
No, there were no, there were very minimal adjustments and they were all posted. There weren't hardly in it all. Overall, it's really clean audit. So I appreciate Emma. She's very responsive. Kind of get in there and got the audit down to a week or so, and it's handled very, very efficiently. So it's always a pleasure to work with her and her staff, and very, very responsive. And I would say a key thing in audits is that can turn it from a good audit is turnover. So keep everyone happy, and audits kind of stay in good shape. Is what I would say is that's because I do a lot of audits, and some are messy audits, and some have different kinds of stories to tell, and a lot of the factors that drive it are turnover. So just be mindful of that. So yeah, I don't think I have anything else to say.
Okay. Thank you for being here tonight.
All right.
Before you go, Morgan, so I guess on behalf of the board, Emma, thank you and your team for all you do. I'm on the edge of some audits at my regular work, and I see that I know it's not an easy process. And as Morgan pointed out, there's often times when it doesn't go smoothly. And so this is, I think, at least the second year in a row where it's gone pretty well. So.
Mr. Chair, thank you. We have a good team in administration and a person in finance as well that helps. And I think our entire team has contributed to this. We have very financial savvy people across our administration.
Will you please express our thanks to that team?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I just want to echo that sentiment to make sure that's heard.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Morgan.
Thank you.
So related to Morgan's presentation is item number 6, which is the acceptance of the fiscal year 2025 audit. do we need any other discussion with that? Okay. Before we hear a motion on this item, anybody else have anything to state about it? Okay. Hearing none, I would entertain a motion.
I move to accept the 2025 audit as it stands.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Further questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next on the agenda is item number 7, the Cherry Lane E-rate ITB memorandum. Director Grove. I had to read this 3 or 4 times. And teach me.
I will do my best, but I might be calling on phone a friend here in a minute. Essentially, E-rate is where we get money from the federal government mostly, but there's other pieces to it. But we have someone who helps us with this because it is complicated, it is hard, but there are 2 different types of E-rate. One is for hardware and one is for internet. And so we have to go through the process to bid this out through their model to allow us to get that discount. It essentially pays for, I believe, 50% of the out cost on a lot of this of the hardware. So
Okay. And so the action item.
I'm looking at my team to make sure I
Yeah.
caught the high level bullet points of that.
So what we're deciding here is, are we okay with giving you the authority to execute that contract?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. So we have to have the go ahead from the board to enter into into that contract.
Okay.
And this is to also highlight, 1, the complexity of it, but 2, that we're doing this with help, also with someone who does this as a full-time job to help entities go through the E-rate process. So this is something that smaller libraries in Idaho can rely on ICFL for help with, but for us, we're at a point where we're beyond that level.
Okay.
And it's easier for us to work with an outside entity to make sure that we dot all our I's and cross all our T's.
And a vendor has not been selected yet.
No.
Okay.
That'll,
this starts
will
the
allow
process.
us to
We
go through
put
that.
out a bid. Once the bid is received, then this gives you the authority to execute that bid.
Correct. And it'll be within the full compliance of the E-rate stipulations. So we don't have any like wiggle room. We have to follow exactly that process. So
Everybody else get it?
clear as mud.
Chair Kohler, Director, I think my one question is do we expect any change in cost to our telecommunication and network provider?
Mr. Maybe. I think it'll, if you look at the cost of just about anything, it's going up. So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it goes up, but that's part of the competitive bid process, is to allow us to keep those costs down. And I would highly expect the cost to go up, especially because we're going to be doing more. And it's new. I'm looking at my team to make sure I'm like highlighting. Dan, do you want to jump in with anything?
Mr. Chair and trustees, what this ITB is for is the hardware.
Microphone.
Is the hardware and wiring and low voltage for the Cherry Lane remodel. And so there are 2 categories, a 471 category and a 470 category. The 470 category covers the internet, which that covers 50%. The 471, which we're bidding, covers 100% of the cost of this. And so this won't change. And this also includes a contract in the ITB that will cover for 5 years any work that needs to be done on installation on the hardware and everything out of the Cherry Lane project. So that's what this ITB stands for, items to buy. So the way that E-rate works, Trustee Castle, is that we're assigned a certain amount of money for 5 years. And this comes out of that certain amount of money of 5 years, which is determined by our school districts. It's really super weird, complex, but we have been assigned for the next 5 years. It just started over $375,000. And so this amount will probably be under $100,000. But since working with Emma, she said we need to have this come forward because the contract will be over the stipulation that we have here. So that's why we brought it to you.
Okay.
Thank you for that clarification. That's very helpful.
Mr. Chair, Director Grove,
Yeah, go ahead, Laura.
who is the entity that's helping with the E-rate bid
Sure.
process?
Trustee, Funds for Learning is
Okay.
the name of the company. They're out of Oklahoma.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Josh, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, in the interest of board efficiency and having full faith and confidence in the capabilities of Director Grove, I move that we approve the Cherry Lane E-rate ITB memorandum as presented and published.
Thank you.
I second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Action carries? What do we? Okay. Up next, item number 8, the AMH purchase memorandum. A little easier to understand than the ITB memorandum.
This one's a lot easier. This is to purchase the 2 automated material handlers, colloquially known as sorters, that we talked about, I believe, last month. But we have these in all of our branches, except for Unbound, all of our traditional branches. And then we took the one that was at Cherry Lane over to the warehouse, and we'll be able to use repair and replacement funds because it's in the warehouse now to replace that. And we'll be able to use the plant facility funds to purchase the new one that will go into Cherry Lane. Because of the warehouse, all of our sorters can be a lot smaller in the branches, and then be a lot larger in the warehouse, thus allowing staff in the branches to focus more exclusively on the materials that go back onto the shelves in their location, and to take all of the other extra work and put it at the warehouse. So trying to keep as much happening at the branches for the branches. And we had budgeted, I believe, $400,000 for the sorter at Cherry Lane. With this, we're able to get 2 sorters for less than what we had budgeted 1 sorter.
Okay, now I'm confused though. So what the amount on this memo is $142,000. Is that? Is there?
There's 2 parts.
Yeah, the second part was like 300.
That's right. Yeah.
So there's 2 parts to this. There's the Cherry Lane portion, and then there's the central one. And so I believe you should have that at the back of that.
Yeah, I see it now. Okay.
Yeah.
I think I'm aware of, maybe the others are too, but you want to talk about how we now take more books over there? We just box them up here. I mean,
We
we don't
will
sort them here.
We will do that once we get the sorters.
Okay.
So
And
once
that's
we
what
get
you're talking about for efficiency.
efficiency,
Okay.
yeah. So right now we use out of the, I think, see here at Orchard Park we have. I'm going to look and say we have 9 bins plus an exception bin. So an exception bin means something it didn't scan properly or it has some other uniqueness, and so that's always the last one at the end, and it just dumps in as a overflow bin. So you always have to have one of those. So the other 9, 4 of those are going to be for courier. So they're going to be, is it 4 or 5? 4? 3? Okay, I'm looking for numbers. 3, at least 3 bins are going to be for like Boise, Ada, Caldwell. And so the fewer of those we can have going to other locations, we'll just have it go to warehouse. And then when we get to the warehouse, we'll be able to sort it into the courier bins directly. Right now, they go into these big tubs, and those tubs, they're called trolleys. And you have to empty them, take the items out of the trolley, take them over to a courier bin, and then sort them into the couriers. And so with the 3 trolleys that accept items that go across the consortium, you'll have Boise in with Eagle along with Ada, and then you have to sort through each of those items and put them into the proper bin. It also allows for more human error because just because it's an Ada item doesn't mean that it's going back to Ada Victory. It might be an Ada item that's on hold for somebody in Mountain Home. And so you have to then read the slip to make sure that it gets into the book and then goes to the right spot. So it's complex, and we'd like to try and make it less complex.
And new, more robust equipment does that. That's the
By
part.
centralizing everything at the warehouse, it allows us to have a machine big enough to do it without crossing items into different bins.
Okay. Trustee Castle.
Mr. Chair, Director, I just kind of want to have a better concept of maybe what these machines do, and I'll give context as to where I'm coming from. Completely game for inefficiency. Occasionally I find people doing this AI will make everything and solve all your problems that ever existed in the world, right? And then I find myself going in a backwards direction, right? So just wanted to get some context as to how we chose the machine, what they do. You know, I kind of understand they sort, right? But I don't understand maybe how they pick, right? You know, so.
So, Mr. Trustee Castle, the sorter machine allows us to check in items without having to handle each of those items. So when we check out 1 million items a year, like we do, rather than handling each of those returns, our machine allows us to sort them into bins that make it so that we can get them onto carts faster. So with this model, we'll have a 10 bin system, 1 being an exception. So 9 bins. Now, one of those bins is going to be for warehouse. One of those bins is going to be for holds. The holds one we'll take out and we put on the hold shelf. The warehouse one we send over to the warehouse to get it sorted. But the other 7 that are left are going to be able to break down into adult fiction, adult nonfiction, children picture books, teens, things like that, so that we can then quickly make a cart and then get those onto the floor and onto the shelves faster. And so it expedites the check-in process, and it allows us to get them where they need to go quicker. And the more bins you have, the more options you have to get more granular with either the collection or the location. So by doing a really large central location, rather than having like a Boise and an Eagle and an Ada bin all together, you can have a Boise downtown, you can have a Boise Collister, you can have an Eagle, you can have a Mountain Home, and they'll automatically, with this system, not even go into the trolleys, they'll go into the courier bins. So even that makes it faster. So you just grab the courier bin when it's full, set it off to the side, and then when that courier comes through multiple times a day, it's out the door.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Good. That's the next slide. Can we go next slide, please? Thanks, Lucille. So this is the AMH that will be at Cherry Lane. Very crude drawing to try and highlight what that looks like, but this is essentially what it would look like. So up where it says proposed courier changes and manual drop, that is where that exterior drive up book drop would be. The little icon with a person at the end as the staff station. So staff are able to induct. That's a great word. Induct at that point, meaning they put in items that have come in from the courier or from the manual drop where the holds are at the east entrance. And the reason we'll probably go with this model, with this configuration, I should say, is the holds is one that you want quick access to, because you have to put the receipt into the item and then get it onto the cart and get it out. And the warehouse one will be over by the staff entrance door, so we can get it quickly out the door as well. So trying to be as efficient with space and configuration as possible. But as you can see, this allows us to have those more granular trolley drops so that we can get the carts built. And as someone who used to put books away, this would have been amazing to have had. I mean, granted, back then I was fighting with, cassette tapes and and trying to lock them with magnetic locks and everything. We've come a long way, and I'm very appreciative of that. What allows these machines to do this is also something I didn't mention before, is it reads the RFID tags that are inside the radio frequency identification tags. So all of our items have, if you ever look, there's a little white square in the back of the books. That is a RFID tag that allows the machine to then read it as it goes across the belts. It also allows you to use the self-checkout without scanning the barcode by reading. And that's where, you can do stacks of books because it can read multiple RFID tags at once. Or it should be able to.
Mr. Chair, Director Grove, I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
In terms of it makes sense that we have sorters at each building, and then we have a warehouse sorter, essentially. Just out of curiosity, how, and this, you might not know this, how many, do our patrons typically return the books to the branches from which they check them out?
Looking at staff to answer that one.
No, it's just whatever's handy.
I do.
I do too. That's why I was like, who wouldn't return their, but it makes sense. I mean, right? You can, this is like, if I am from Boise and I happen to be in Meridian, I could return a Boise book.
You could
You can do
return
that
it
now.
to any of them.
Right.
I would say, yes, you're more likely to return the item to where you checked it out, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's where the item's from.
Right. You just have to get it to a library.
Correct.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
Okay. And then as our system grows, how much, what are we thinking of in terms of future handling and sorting at the warehouse? What's the plan? Do we have a vision?
Yes. We always have a vision, and I'm going to see if the team can get it put in here for what that looks like.
Wow.
So this is a little bit more graphically pleasing version of what you have in your packet, but and it's maybe a little bit off of what the exact will be, the number of bins and whatnot. But this allows us, where those blue ones are, those are items that are going to go back onto the warehouse shelves. Those red ones are going to be bins that go to our Meridian locations. So our internal courier will be able to do that as we get going. And then the green ones are the Lynx courier and how that will be taken out. And so we're going through with Lynx right now to try and figure out what the Lynx courier looks like starting in October of 2027. So for fiscal year 28, we have to unwind the 30 years of Lynx courier built into the Boise public system, pull it out and put it into the Lynx system. And by doing so, we're probably going to have some other changes, one of which will be us doing all of our internal courier and not having any external Lynx courier other than the warehouse. But it allows us to then quickly get things out. And with this system, staff at the branches should hopefully appreciate this. But as you can see, it's maybe a little hard to see, but it says cherry and then cherry holds. So we will already have bins for the holds ready to go when they arrive at the branches. And all they'll have to do is scan that bin.
Mhm.
All of those will be checked in, saying that they're ready for pickup at Cherry Lane and immediately go on the shelf. They won't have to go through through the AMH at Cherry. The red bin for just Cherry would go through the AMH so that it can go into adult children, things like that. But the holds will already have been taken out of that. So very few items would then get triggered with a hold. It'll happen in the amount of time that something goes, but it'll be drastically decreased from the amount of handling, and then the availability of those items onto the shelves that much faster.
So currently all our Lynx items go to the warehouse.
Not yet.
Okay, but that's ultimately the plan.
That's ultimately what
Okay.
will happen. Anything that is returned, any Meridian item will come to the warehouse, and then that'll allow us to tell it where to go. it'll centralize that part. And I'm really excited about how it will allow us to streamline the process.
Mhm.
It cuts down on manual labor at the branches. It cuts down on some back and forth pieces and some inefficiencies. And in the future, as we get going a little bit more, if we can get links, more couriers, more times a day, if we can do more internal couriers, now we'll have the setup to be able to go faster. We'll have that efficiency built in that the more people you throw at it, the system can then absorb that change. Whereas right now that you're kind of limited on what's available because there's only so many things that can get checked in at a location at a time. With a machine like this, we'll be able to increase that. And I'm going to read a note from staff. Checking in 100 items on the machine takes 4 minutes. It takes a human closer to 30.
All right. My last question is, these are expensive machines.
Yes.
What is the warranty for these machines?
I'm looking at staff to see if they know off the top of their head.
We have a 1-year warranty on it and with maintenance, and then we can extend that for up to 5 years.
Sure. I would also add though, one of the reasons that we've continued to go with the Linksos is we already have 2 of them. And several of the other libraries and links have them also. And so what we are going to do is we're going to hire Linksos to come out, give us training, and we're going to invite other libraries to that training to be able to do the service ourselves beyond that 1-year warranty. And then by having others join us on that, we'll have an extended group of people who know how to do it so that it's not contained in only 1 or 2 people here, but it'll be across the Links consortium so that we have more people to lean on for help when those things inevitably do happen, 5, 6, 7 years down the road. And then we've learned our lesson on the old sorter from a different company is making sure that we have some of those consumable parts available because we don't want to get 10 years down the road and not have the ability to replace it taken away from us because we can't find the parts. So making sure that we're kind of covering our bases on all sides with that as well.
What's the expected life expectancy?
10 years.
Okay. Any additional questions? Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Garrett.
I move that we approve the request to purchase 2 automated material handlers as per the memorandum.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 9, our staff presentation on the new scheduling software, which I believe was a request from the board in a recent meeting. So thank you.
Okay. Mr. Chair, trustees, I think this is on, yes. We completed our scheduling software. We talked to you about it last year when we first started it, when you saw that big purchase of $17,500. You'll see another item for that amount, and that's because we've concluded the project. And I have Dusty from Pinnacle with me today. I want to give you a big kudos. Dusty was a big part of making this happen in the late stages of the process. Once we started doing some heavy testing, she, operating a branch, was able to start building it out well ahead of time for her team and really troubleshooting and catching errors and working with our developers to finalize the software. So we've been live since mid-January now, and we think it's going great. There's some learning curves, but overall it's been great. So some custom features, we have multiple views. We have service points, timeline, and calendar. So there's different ways to view branch schedules. We have drag and drop, which is something we talked to you about last year. That's been a feature that's saving us a lot of time and making changes really easy. Filtering options for team views. So each of our branches has 2 or 3 teams. So you're able to filter views to see just people in a certain team. A big piece is Google two-way sync, which has been incredible. We use Google Calendar in our workplace. And so for to not have to duplicate events, Google Calendar events with custom keywords are able to be pulled from Google Calendar and imported onto the software. So we don't make the mistake of double booking people. So that's been a challenge with the sync at times, but getting it up and going has been great. We have desk percentage calculations to be able to keep real life stats of if our staff are working as much as they should be on desk, if they're being scheduled as much as they should be, and then some very simple reports that are simple but effective. So next slide, please. Go ahead, Dusty.
Oh, I made that small. So one of the main features when you log in, you've got your dashboard, and that gives us a very quick view of our shifts that we're scheduled for. Branch managers and supervisors will be able to use it a little more because we can go in and toggle it to see all of the shifts scheduled for that day at a quick view. So then we could see like 3 people are scheduled to open, we know how we have coverage. And then you can see your individual profiles and edit settings from there as well.
Templates. When we build schedules, we try to build the ideal template. This is what the perfect day at the library looks like. So we're able to do those on 4-week rotations, and we could apply individual days or weeks when we're building it out. So we have the flexibility of, do I want to go day by day, week by week, or select certain days of the week? So that's been a really nice piece. There's no restriction on how you build the templates, how many there are, how you apply them. I think we've done programs templates, team templates, front desk coverage templates. So there's a lot of flexibility and allows people to have different working styles and find what works best for them.
So when you actually go to scheduling, we're able to toggle, as we said before, we can toggle our teams. So then as a manager, I can look at, just team 1 and see just them and make sure that they're scheduled correctly. Or we can look at it alphabetical and have all the teams there. We can also toggle the desk percentages to be able to make those adjustments to make sure that we've got enough hours on desk for each position. And then we can filter specific staff. So if I wanted to look at just the pages, I could enter those in and just see the pages or certain people and their schedule for the week.
And what we've got circled here is a change that was made. So Dan, if you would really quick flip back to the previous slide and flip to this one again, go forwards. So that was essentially how a schedule change works. It was a really quick drag and drop. So that's been really efficient in making real life changes as opposed to having to do 20 clicks, was it roughly, in the old software. So really nice feature. If you'll go next slide, please.
That's the actual slide with the change.
Yes, go one more. So Google Sync, you want to touch on this?
Yeah. So the Google Sync was a huge feature that we were looking for. So we have both outbound and inbound. So when we make the schedule in the software, it goes directly to the staff's Google Calendar. So they can see it from a calendar app and view it on the fly. But they also, their meetings, their other things that they schedule, the programs that are all scheduled through Google Calendar, sync back to the software. So as a scheduler, I can look at it and see that, one of our librarians has a program, and so make sure I don't schedule them on the desk because that has already synced to the software and gives me a bird's eye view of it.
And the reason it's two-way sync is because some events get planned in Google Calendar ahead of time. Like if we know we're going to have staff day in February, that's going to be put on Google Calendar. Then it syncs to the software. So once we get to February 16th or whatever it is on everyone's calendar in the software, it will already show that. So there's no mistaking there. Flip side, when we're building schedules, we might put someone on desk in 4 weeks. And because the two-way sync is showing they're not busy at that time, this mainly relates to our librarians who are out in the community doing outreach and programs, then that will get put on their calendar so they could see, oh, okay, so 9 to 10, I'm on desk. The rest of the day, I'm not on desk. I could do, what I need to with my other duties.
And then as far as reporting, as he said, it's simple, but easy to follow. It allows us to filter again by individual staff, by positions, or by teams, and then we can select certain weeks or days, ranges of dates that we can then view those percentages and then make an adjustment on, say a certain person is only 50% on desk that week, we can immediately go in and change that to make sure that they have enough desk time for their position.
Would you tackle this next one too?
Yeah.
Kind
So
of more the same.
so this is more the same, just a rundown of an example of different staff that might have. And I think I've got one of our staff members at 60%. So then I would know to go in and adjust her schedule to meet those hours.
Thank you. And I do apologize for making it so small. I felt like it was bigger when I was designing it, but it's like a very, I think Library IQ, it was like more bold and easier to see on a big screen as opposed to this. Any questions?
Dusty Vasile, thank you for showing us that. Questions from trustees?
Mr. Chair?
Please go ahead.
Question, does this software flow into like payroll?
It does not. This was Paylocity integration was something we looked at really early on, but we weren't able to accomplish that.
Additional questions? Okay.
Great.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
both.
everyone. Thank you, Dusty.
Thank you. Up next, director updates. Mr. Grove.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will try and keep it brief since I know we have a bunch of things still to go. So we'll start off with the biggest one, which is the Cherry Lane renovation. We do have a few pictures here that I will run through and kind of describe. So the biggest issue had been the trusses on those front hips on the south side of the building. And those have been replaced. And if you've driven by, it is all closed back up and they're making it look real nice in there. The middle picture are those new trusses. And so they just took everything out and put new ones in and we're good to go now.
How'd the cost come in?
That I don't know, but I believe it was way cheaper than we had feared.
Yeah.
Half of what we expected. So that's good.
News. Okay.
And if you look at that first picture on the left, I like this picture just because it's really cool. There's these service cavities that are underneath the floor that allow pipes and wires and things to go through them. And so that is a picture of to the right. So off the screen is the what used to be the entry lobby. There's now a hole in that wall that goes into what will be the teen space, which used to be the children's area. And we're looking back towards what was the circ desk and the garage and the staff area with everything kind of blown out. It looks very different in there, obviously. And then on the right, it's a little small but hard and a little hard to see. But that is the domed area that has been framed back in. And it is where our large program room is going to be going forward. It will have a pitched triangle-shaped roof or ceiling, and that will conceal some of the HVAC units that you can barely make out in the. We're kind of like pointing at it in that picture. There's going to be 4 of those in there, and so it is a very modular HVAC system, which allows us to have properly balanced heating and cooling throughout this very large building. But they are making a lot of progress. A lot of the rooms have been framed in. The conduits for electrical have been put in, and there's a lot of change every time I go in there that it's making it look a lot better. And I'm really excited with the progress that they're making.
Mr. Chair, trustees, I'll complete our director's updates. This month, I wanted to share something other than all of our great programs and happenings, more internal stuff that's going on. So we had Staff Development Day in February. That was a very fun day. We got great feedback. Nick and I presented on State of the Library, and later we talked about guiding principles and had staff help establish our 2026 goal, which we'll share with you shortly. But I think the fun activity that we did, and you could see that in the top right-hand corner, is we had Clifton strengths assessments for all of our staff. And then we did a training and a practice activity. So staff fell into up to four categories: executing, influencing, relationship building, and strategic thinking. To maybe no one's surprise, library folks heavily fall into relationship building. So we got to learn a lot about ourselves, our work styles, our learning styles, as well as those of our colleagues and our team. So that was a really great activity. I know my teams, they've been having meetings with their teams to kind of discuss, hey, who on our team is the strategic one, who falls in more into this category, and helping understand, why people are why they're driven the way they are. So while it's certainly not all encompassing and exclusive to, the 5 strengths that we learned about ourselves and each other, it certainly has helped create a lot of good conversations for professional development and just how we could better work together. So staff day was a big hit. From what I've been told, we certainly had a great time. Our presenter was great, and we talked about our guiding principles, which was exciting as well. Next slide, please. And I also wanted to fill you in on where we're at with staff promotions. It was discussed, I think, 2 months ago now on some of the changes we were going to be making with our bookmobile operations, and how that impacted staffing with the reduction in associate librarian positions and the addition of one more youth services librarian at each traditional branch. So we actually had a resignation during that process. So we actually were able to, sorry, I'm skipping down one. I'll start at the top. So we had 4 of our existing associate librarians promoted, 1 to adult services librarian, 3 to youth services librarians, and 1 existing associate librarian resigned during that process. And so instead of 2 vacancies, we were left with 3 associate librarian vacancies, which were recently also filled. So 3 library assistants were promoted. That was a great step up for them. So this was all internal. And that then, left the gap in right here at Orchard Park for some library assistant positions. So we're currently recruiting internally for that. We're in the midst of the interview process, and that we also had a library page vacancy, which we're kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel of any availability from Cherry Lane staff to be moved around, and that is an external hire, that library page.
Mr. Chair, I would add, Vasile mentioned it, but we have now transferred all remaining Team 2 and Team 3 staff from Cherry Lane. So the only Cherry Lane staff that have not been reassigned are the Team 1 Cherry Lane staff, which are the manager and the librarians and the associate librarians. And so they are still doing outreach programs and planning for future programs with partners and things like that. So those things continue. Those things don't go away. But just so that everyone knows, like, how, I know early on we talked about doing rotations and things like that. That never came to fruition because of resignations and backfilling. And so we've been able to maximize the efficiency of keeping those staff and filling those holes as they come about.
And to add, outside of the regular duties that the Cherry Lane Team 1 is doing, the 5 of them are actually staffing Tiny Library right now. So in moving associate librarians to spend more time on Bookmobile, we moved them away, the Pinnacle Dusty staff, from exclusively staffing Tiny Library. So now that Cherry Lane team that is without a branch is helping staff Tiny right now. So that was a great use of that resource to have them around. That is it for us. Any questions?
I will add a couple of finance things that I just wanted to call attention to, because it doesn't mean anything to us in the moment, but it's really pretty impressive that we got our Moody rating upgraded. It doesn't do anything for our current COP financing, but for any future financing that we do, we're at the absolute top of what we're able to achieve. We can't ever get to AAA status because of how we're structurally set up, legislatively and with Percy and things like that. But we're at the absolute peak of what we can do. So they upgraded us to that last month, and I thought that was a pretty cool little piece that I wanted to make sure we got a plug in on. And then, happy to answer any questions from what we've presented or what's in the packet.
Questions from trustees? Josh, go ahead.
Sure. Couple of things. The Moody rating was eye-watering, put you to sleep type, I thought. But it's, hey, great. Good job, team. Especially if it enables better finance rates or better returns or something in the future, easier funds generation. I had a question about the rotation not happening, and I think you called it strategic projects, specifically the digitization with the History Center and some of those tasks that I thought were going to be solved through the rotation. And if that hasn't happened, are those tasks already sorted and taken care of, or with these automated handlers or the Pages Union gainfully employed doing that kind of stuff, or what? I just want to make sure the tasks or the things that needed to be done that were identified before we closed Cherry have either gotten done or there's a plan in place to get them done.
Mr. Chair, Trustee Cummings, complicated, yes, would be the best way to put it, I guess, is yes, some of those things have been done, but a lot of those things are just long-term projects too that don't have any urgency to get them done. But they need to get done. Right now, trying to keep everybody focused on the front desk and servicing the desks while reducing our cost. And so trying to keep as much cost down as possible because 70 or 65% of our budget is personnel. So if we can keep that down, it gives us more flexibility with these capital projects that we're doing. And so some of the things have been done while we had the Cherry Lane staff before they started getting picked off to go to these other teams. Some of them have been moved to other teams, and some of them have been either deprioritized or not needed because of the warehouse. The warehouse, we had all of these plans in place before we had the warehouse, and so a lot of the changes happened, or a lot of change has happened because of the warehouse. We haven't looked at a lot of the specifics. I'd have to maybe lean on staff a little bit to remind me on some of them, but
I have some.
You have some?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, Trustee Cummings, the most recent transfer happened this Sunday. Yes. Leading up to that, we did have Cherry Lane staff on special projects, but since there were so few of them, there wasn't enough for the actual rotations where it would take a team out of, say, Pinnacle or Orchard Park and introduce a team of the same, amount of hours a week to replace them and have them away working on special projects for up to a quarter at a time as we had planned. But since the closure, rather, we had a circulation patron purge project that was huge. We had basically, as far as patron accounts, all the circulation back end stuff, we had major cleanup projects take place, which was something that had not taken place as regularly as we would like, just due to busyness, I guess. So feeling really good about that. We were able to, audit some other internal systems. So as well as have them work on some other things like the community survey. That was a big part. So meaningful work was done, but the rotations did not, in fact, happen, more so due to the staffing complement.
Other questions? Nick, I've got one comment and then a question. Comment, I was happy to see Unbound numbers keep going up. That's impressive. I go in there a few times every other month or so, and I'm always surprised how many people are there. And then on the Cherry Lane schedule, are we still on schedule to what you presented last month?
Yes.
Okay. All right. That takes us to item number 11, an action item to talk about the guiding principles that came out of the staff day.
Yes, Mr. Chair. And I did just get a notice from staff about one other, one for Trustee Cummings. The history stuff did get moved from the basement of City Hall over to the warehouse. And part of that, we did have one of the Cherry Lane staff before they just moved on Sunday, sort a lot of things, particularly the maps. There's hundreds and hundreds of maps, but we're trying to decide which things are keepable and which things are old but not historic. And so rather than just starting to digitize everything, there's a lot of things that are really old, and a lot of it's cool, but we don't have any way to know why it's cool. Like if it's just really old, but we don't know who it came from, where it was, or why it was, you can't really tell a story with something other than being like, yeah, it's old. So we're going through that process, and we've gotten that down. So when we do future digitization, we won't be digitizing everything. We'll be digitizing a collection that actually has value.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry, derail before we get into the guiding principles. So we shared in January the guiding principles, the 6 guiding principles, and then at staff day, we presented that to staff, and then we presented them with the 3 focus areas that we're going to have for 2026, and then the corresponding tasks. There's 4 tasks for each focus area. And after we presented that, we had the staff vote on what goal they wanted to do as a team. So all 97 staff voted on what they wanted our task or our goal to be for the year. So one, like if you forget everything else, if you forget the guiding principles, if you forget the focus areas, if you're not involved with the task, you all know this one thing that we're all shooting towards, and that is the goal. Yep. Yeah, it went a little high. So we'll go ahead and run through these. So the first of the focus areas for 2026 is going to be collections, followed by communication and customer service. So with collections, that is for this focus area, reflecting what our community wants and how they find it. Communication, improving how we communicate, promote, and connect. Customer service, building skills and consistency to support great service. Now, when we look at each of these with collections, these are the 4 tasks that we are going to set out to complete by the end of 2026. We're going to look at our collection purchase request process. Those are a lot of words to say. How do you know what has been requested? So our frontline staff get this question a lot. Like, how do we know, like, I asked for this book and I haven't heard anything back. How do I know that it's actually being taken care of? How do I know that it's been accepted, denied? If it's on order, we're not buying it. What's happening? How do you peek behind the curtain? So the team is working on building out a system for that. It should be ready to go with April, faster than I thought. Next is a community collection survey that is live right now. And this is a way for us to try and seek feedback from the community on what they want to see in our community, in our collections across the district. How do we curate our collection to fit the needs of our community? And how do we, there's only so much money to go around. There's only so much shelf space to go around. How do we make sure that we're doing it in a way that is reflective of the users of our library system? Reader advisory training. This is one for staff, but this is, if you've ever gone in and asked a staff, can you help me find a book? This is training that is part and parcel with being a frontline library worker, is being able to answer that question regardless of who comes in and what their wants and needs are. And then review collection categorizations. Hopefully I don't ever have to say that word again. This is looking at how do we put things on our shelves? How do we group things together? A lot of the libraries in our area have genreified their collection. So rather than just jumping in and doing that, we want to make sure that how we sort, how we organize our collection is with purpose for our community, for our staff, for our facilities. And so making sure that we're in the moment, but also looking forward with how we put those together. So an example of a genreification, right? It would be you're putting all of the murder mystery books together, or you're putting all of the cooking books together. And sometimes you might even have, depending on how far you go with this, you can have what's called the BISAC, and that's going to be the bookstore model. And so things are going to be organized a lot different than with the Dewey Decimal System. I can tell you right now, if you're going to look for a book on dogs, you're going to go to 636.7, right? But in the genreification, you might have dogs, in a pet collection or an animals collection and things like that, depending on, again, it gets messy, but this will be us looking at that process for the next year. Communication, audit our website. So what our current website was built in 2015 is when it launched. And you can see that in some of the pages, and just, it's now 11 years old. We want to make sure that we're putting out the best product we can for what we have. And we need to know also if this is the right website for us long-term. Eventually you have to do a complete refresh. We need to find out this year how far out that process needs to be. Where are we planning to do that major overhaul? And then establish staff feedback best practices. We've reorganized all of our committees, and one of the committees that I'm in charge of is the staff engagement committee that oversees staff feedback. So looking at how can we get that information from staff better and more consistently. And then evaluate our need for mission value and vision statements. These are all those statement pieces that go with all the strategic plans and things. We have those out there. We want to make sure that over the next 5 years, that the ones that we have are still compatible with our new guiding principles, and making sure that everything kind of copacetic. And then improve marketing SOPs. So very internal based thing, but we have a lot of moving pieces that need to be kind of corralled. And then the customer service piece, more training. One of the cool ones that I know staff are, at least one of the staff in the room, I know is very excited about welcome packets. And so we're working on getting some welcome packets and making that go forward. How do we make people feel comfortable and accepted into our library system when we first meet them? And then how do we explore outreach roles and responsibilities? Who does what, why? And then reference interview training. This is one that is huge for me. It is, how do you ask questions to a person that's in front of you to understand what they're asking? Because what they say might not be what they're actually wanting to know. How do you get to the meaning behind what they're saying so that you can actually help them with the request that they have? It's a huge part of working in libraries. And then the goal that our staff wanted to do for this year is go from roughly 50,000 cardholders to 60,000 cardholders, which is ambitious. But this is the one that they overwhelmingly selected. And I know that Chairman Kohler, this is one that you had hoped they would select, and we didn't pressure them to pick this. This is where they wanted to go. And I think it's definitely a stretch goal. We are currently at 52,103 patrons. Yeah, it's about 1,000 a month.
Just 8,000 more to go.
Yeah, we're right on track.
It's
800 a month, right?
Yeah. It's about
a month. We're 3 months in.
Yeah.
2,400, but we got half a month left.
Exactly. So if you know anybody in your orbit that does not have a library card, please encourage them to get them. If there are people in your household that don't have them, go ahead and get them signed up too. We'll sign up everybody. You bring them in, we'll get you signed up. We're going to have some big pushes to go out and get people to get their library card. We want people to know the service that is available to them by living in our district. And so I think that we provide a lot of value for what we provide, and we want more people to take advantage of that.
Thank you. What is our action item here then? Just to approve these principles and the goal?
You've already approved the principles. It's to approve the focus areas, tasks, and goal.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, please.
I move that we approve the 2026 focus areas, tasks, and goal.
Seconded.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Number 12, job description for an assistant director of operations.
Yes. So this is a position that we had before. It is somewhat the same as what it was before, but things have also changed based on the staffing structure of our org chart. But when we moved Dan from executive assistant to executive manager last year following the departure of our previous assistant director of operations, we did so with the understanding that we need to take a year to assess, do we need to bring this position? Do we need to immediately refill this position, or do we need to really kind of dive into what this position is before bringing it back? So we've done that, and we need to bring it back, and this is how it shook out.
Okay. Questions on this one? If not, do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair.
Josh?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the Assistant Director of Operations job description as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, two policy reviews here, the volunteer policy and the code of conduct policy. Mr. Grove.
Yes, volunteer one I will talk on, and I'll have Vasil talk about the code of conduct. The volunteer one was just a lot of cleanup, more than what would fit on the consent agenda. So just bringing that forward, to mostly just cleanup though.
Yeah, I didn't see much that was really substantial.
No.
Okay. Let's talk about the code of conduct first, then we'll do the two actions. Is that okay?
Mr. Chair, trustees, as far as code of conduct, and I want to pull it up for specific language, Nick and I met with our legal counsel to brush up a piece that we've been looking at for a long time now, and that is selling of goods or services inside the library. So as we all know here, panhandling and selling of goods or services is prohibited on district property. But for purposes benefiting the district, we want to make that allowed. So things like author events, authors being able to visit the library and sell their books here, other creative ideas that ultimately benefit the library, whether it is through financial means or through exposure, promotion, marketing, getting more people in our doors for events, those sort of things. So that's the big update. Otherwise, mainly just language and other things we updated in that policy.
Thanks, Vasil. Any questions? Hearing none, let's do this in two actions, one for each of those descriptions, please.
I move that we approve the volunteer policy.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. You're doing great, Laura.
All right. I move that we approve the code of conduct.
Second.
And we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay. Leisure Lane, I asked Nick to give us a quick update on the status of Leisure Lane since it was an issue a few months back and is hopefully not an issue anymore. But
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. It depends on your definitions. So this is one of the more complicated pieces of Cherry Lane. I've been doing a lot of research and trying to unravel, and the more I research Leisure Lane, the more sure I become and the less unsure I become at the exact same time. Sometimes within the same document, I'm left going, oh, okay, I understand it. And then I flip to the next page. I'm like, I have no idea what just happened. So I'm going to do my best to explain where we're at, what we're talking about, and where we go from here. So Leisure Lane is the private lane east of the Cherry Lane branches property. If we take a look at it, it is that kind of blue line that extends up. It is a dead end road. It does not go out, and it is complicated to say the least. There's a few of the properties back there of like the 11 homes that are on city services, but not all of them. And it's not obviously a public road, but it could have been, but it's not. It goes through a whole thing. So we own obviously the Cherry Lane branch over there, and then the east parking lot expansion, and then the annex building. If we can go to the next slide. Just wanted to give some context with where all of this came from and how we got here. So the Cherry Lane branch is kind of off to the left side there. And when we opened, we had a parking lot, just a small version of that east parking lot that we had. So everything to the right of that, east of here, it did not exist. And so there was a home on what I'll show you here in a second was 1727, and there was a home where the annex was at 1250 Cherry. If we can go to the next slide, this is where our boundary survey by CM Company that was done in 2024 shows us all of those property lines in yellow. You can also see there's a little sliver next to Leisure Lane that was nobody's. There was so many like records of who owned it and who didn't own it and why, and there was all these easements. We got it figured out, but it was Idaho Power, but it could have been ACHD at one point. But it started with an easement. The easement property or the easements in this area started in 1964. It changed again, I believe, in 1977 and like 1988 and 1991 or 1990. So there was and then again and a little bit in 1996 when there were some ownership changes. So that got messy really fast. But everything that's in lavender purple is library owned. As you can see, we own all the way across Leisure Lane according to the survey. However, that is kind of a point of contention also because there's an easement by the property owners north of us in the neighborhood of Leisure Lane that have an easement to the center line. However, nowhere is that described in detail as to what that actually means. And there's also some conflicting reports of who is supposed to do what. But we go to the next one. This is, as Vasile pointed out, this was like my murder mystery, like map out, like sticky note of like how we got to where we are. And so the first one here is Cherry Lane, what it looked like. That initial east parking lot that was purchased in, it was, I think, January 27th of 1997. So right before we opened Cherry Lane in the spring of 97, we made that purchase and built out that parking lot along with the final construction of Cherry Lane. The expanded east parking lot in purple and the annex building were purchased in 2007. although there was conflicting pieces, we didn't move until like 2009, and there's a whole bunch of things. But the final deed was recorded on October 31st of 2007, with the initial purchase agreement, purchase and sale agreement, starting in May, finalized language in June, and then the final deed piece in October of 2007. So that was for the $450,000, and that's where, if you kind of see that yellow box in the bottom, that's from that previous slide where it shows the property going across Leisure Lane with the 1727 Leisure Lane property, and then the Cherry Lane one, which was the annex at 1250. From that, we had to do we had to go through the city to get it rezoned to be a parking lot, because it was residential. It needed to be rezoned as LO or light office, as how it used to be with the city's codes. And so that's slightly different here now. Sorry, I was on planning and zoning for a long time, or for what felt like a long time. And so that all kind of happened. So to get to being legal to have a parking lot, we had to rezone. Part of rezoning came with a development agreement that was initially put in with language that we had to like give up part of it to become a public street, but then it was stricken. But this is the best I could come up with which is the language directly out of the development agreement that was initially passed through planning and zoning in June of 2008, finalized later in the year by the city council, that had this language in the development agreement, which is no access is allowed to or from the site via Leisure Lane, and no street improvements are required to Leisure Lane. So initially they had written in as part of our conditions of approval that we would be required to repair and fix the road and make it up to a standard to go from Cherry Lane to our property line at the north. That was going to be a condition of approval to go from R4 residential to LO light office to allow us to use the parking lot. Well, there was a lot of neighbor complaints that they didn't want to do that, and there was a whole bunch of personal pieces that went into it. So essentially they ended up where we ended up, which was, okay, well, we're just not going to like worry about it. We'll just do things differently. And so by not having any access, that was written into the development agreement. That's why when we brought it forward a year ago and we're talking about, we want to use Leisure Lane, here's how we need to go through this process. We had to have gone through the city to get that changed, because it was in the development agreement that we had agreed to in 2008. That would have then, what we were wanting to do was to make it into a public road, essentially from our property to the start of the neighborhood. And then we would have handed that over to ACHD, or continued to treat it as a private lane that we owned, but we would control the repair and replacement of it. Because that hasn't happened, it is still the way it is. We will be filling it with patchwork when we do the parking lot pieces of this project. So where the annex building is, and then the expanded east parking lot here, that will be when we kind of patch up Leisure Lane, but we will not be doing a full rebuild of Leisure Lane, which a full rebuild would be hundreds of thousands of dollars, because you have to tear everything up, redo all the drainage and grading and all those. But we will be repairing the potholes. For the piece that we do going forward, I don't know in terms of how we can sell, acquiesce, like give away, so that we don't have it going forward. It's something we'll be exploring, but because of all of this, it's not straightforward. There's not a really clean way. The best option for us is not going to happen, which would be having it become a public road all the way through, and ACHD takes over, especially if they were able to connect over to like 11th that's just not in the works. That nobody has that as something that's going to happen probably in our lifetimes. So if that were to happen, we do have an easement from the property that is not colored on that map, which is the house that is next to the entrances of to Cherry Lane. We have to provide cross access easement from our property to Leisure Lane if we take access off Leisure Lane in the future, if it were to become a public road. So that is why some of the weirdness will happen when we build out our parking lot, is because we have to have a certain configuration for that cross access easement. Even though nothing is happening, we have to have the ability to do it in the future.
Okay, so we fix the potholes now,
Yes.
and then the orthodontist in 2 years says, "Hey, come fix the potholes again."
And we will try to be out of the Leisure Lane business by that time.
Okay, that's the answer I want. Okay.
I don't know how, but we will try.
I would just like to submit that the big takeaway is that if we own Leisure Lane, what's to prevent us from making that a toll road for the maintenance and upkeep of that road? Because right now it's maintained under a private road maintenance agreement by those neighbors.
We don't have one.
You have to have one anytime there's more than, I think, 5 or 6. Oh wait, that's for ACHD rules, which don't apply in this case.
Yeah.
So going back to the toll plaza, armed guard, whatever requirement to recoup improvement monies, is that not a viable? I mean, you catch more flies with honey than vinegar. I understand that. But at the end of the day, private property rights are private property rights. And if we want to convert Leisure Lane or our owned portion of it to a toll road, we have a captive audience, the 11 homes
and
to the north.
And the 2 businesses.
Oh, and 2 businesses. It seems like that should be the big hammer that, hey, everybody can go along and get along, and you can vacate your requirement that we not use Leisure Lane as an access point to the expanded parking lot. Or you can face the consequences of, all right, if you want to play rough, we'll play rough. Is that not a viable negotiation tool?
Yes and no. Here's we've already built out our parking lot to not use Leisure Lane, so we would have to reconfigure our parking lot to take access off of Leisure Lane if we were to go down that road. It's at this juncture, it's cheaper and easier for us to now just say,
forget Leisure Lane.
Yeah.
We're talking about the east entrance being the main entrance to the renovated library. It serves.
Yeah, but that ship sailed. We had.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So back to my point of converting Leisure Lane to a revenue generating piece of property.
Mr. Chair. Yeah.
Garrett.
I would like the director to bring before the board a request to do that before we would execute on creating Leisure Lane into a revenue generating piece of property.
I understand it is not, to be taken lightly, but ultimately, do we not have a responsibility to do the highest and best use of the assets under our control?
Mr. Chair, so I actually live near this area. This is not the only spot actually in that area that has kind of weird easement rules, right? Me and my neighbor are both confused as to who owns the easement behind us, right? So that being said, I feel a bit out of context here. And what I mean by that is I don't know what we've tried with the people back who are, in this area to negotiate in any way, shape, or form. Never seen any of them before the board, right? And so without that context, I find myself hesitant to bring down the hammer of a paid toll road.
Copy. Valid.
Mr. Chair,
Emma, yeah.
I think financially, I have some concerns about continuing to maintain that road. Certainly, when we had the annex and staff were using that road to get to the annex,
Yeah, it's
the
different.
library was recuperating some value from the repairs we were putting into that road. With that road now being a standalone and not having anything to do with our traffic flow, it's difficult to justify expenditures going into that when it's not doing anything at all to serve our base.
And that's my position too. Let's just, if we can wash our hands of it and not deal with it. Yeah. Laura?
Mr. Chair, my question was, what is the process to basically
Vacate it.
vacate that or sell it back to the neighborhood?
Yeah. And maybe that's something
At a
for
fair
future
price.
meeting, probably. I mean, that was my question about the orthodontist. You know, if we're going to just make it decent for them now, does that set a precedent that we're going to maintain it in 2 years and forevermore? So
I would be happy to come back to you with better answers.
Yeah.
It's going to take a long time for me to unravel some of this just from the neighbors think that the ownership and the easements are one way.
right.
We
right.
look at it and we see it this way, but we don't have the full context because, you know, a lot of those people that live there have lived there for 30 years. We're stepping into this relatively
right.
fresh.
Yeah, you and I had that meeting with them, and I
Yeah.
know, yeah.
There's a lot of tension around this. And there's not an agreement among those 11 neighbors or even the businesses. Like one's fine with one thing, one's not okay with the other. You know, there's a lot of moving pieces to this. If we can get to a point where we can just give this to like the city or ACHD or something, I'd be happy to do it. I don't know if any of them will accept it, essentially.
So-
So I don't know what our options are, but I will dig into all of those.
Mr. Chair, Director Grove, I hear easement. Do we own, is it, we're trying to figure out who really owns the land, or
Well,
we have a perception that we own the land?
so from my best understanding, I'm getting a note from staff, we will have to, get legal involved. Yes, 100%. Just trying to understand 40 some years of movement on this property. What I can tell is we own that section of Leisure Lane from Cherry Lane up to the break into the neighborhood. However, there is an easement that is owned by the 11 property owners of those homes that has an easement to the center
Easement.
line. And I'm assuming that it's on the east side to the center line, but because it doesn't really make sense to split it. But
It's a voidable easement.
It should be.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly voidable if it's not defined, you know, to be, 20 feet either side of center line of the existing road. And if it doesn't say that, that is a voidable, that's not, quantifiable, it's voidable. It opens the door to, hey, at the end of the day, ownership is ownership. And with ownership comes the capability to vacate, to sell, to convert. I mean, obviously with, city approval and for things like that. But at the end of the day, deeded ownership is what you start with. And if the easements are no longer applicable
Definable,
or
yeah.
definable, you can either make a new easement and record it, or you can vacate it as unenforceable. Now, the reality is, they've been using that for 40 years, and we don't want to piss everybody off. But at the end of the day, we also don't want to tie ourselves to a financial obligation.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, I know Gretchen was of the opinion that the library was responsible for maintaining that road, and in my early years, we talked about having to repave it, and that's what I'm trying to avoid here, that expense. And so,
And at that time, there was gain.
Yeah.
We had gain. We were using it
Right.
with the annex.
okay, let's get more information. It's not a high priority because it's not going away. It's been there for a long time. So
I will, when our legal counsel gets back, from vacation, we will circle back and sit down with him and start hammering out some options.
If it makes sense to do so. Yeah. Okay.
We'll figure out what our options are.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Any other questions before we go on?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Destiny.
I'm curious to know whether, because we own that piece of the road, whether we have any like liability if something were to happen on that property while the library owns it, because that could be
A consideration.
another,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, consideration.
Don't have a good answer for you. I can
It's a
circle
legal
back
question.
after I speak with legal.
Thanks. All right. We're almost done, hopefully. Item number 15 is an executive session pursuant to Idaho Code 742061B, which is to consider the evaluation, dismissal, or disciplining of, or to hear complaints or charges brought against a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual agent or public school student. As always, the choice to go into executive session is done by a roll call vote, and I will take that now. Trustee Hart,
Yes.
Trustee Castle,
Aye.
Trustee Knutson,
Yes.
Trustee Cummings,
Yes.
and I, Jeff Kohler, also say yes. We are now at 8:41 in executive session. Thank you. All right, it is 8:53 and we are now out of executive session and back in public session for item number 16 on the agenda, future agenda items for our next meeting.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I would like an update on, essentially, I know that we were negotiating maybe some boundary changes within the other library district. I don't know if we ever fully closed the loop on that one.
Okay.
Yes, we can give you an update on that as best we can. There's some weirdness to that one too.
No more weirdness tonight. Okay.
Understood. That's why it's a future agenda item.
Trying to give you a preference might not be the answer you're looking for.
Other items? The usual stuff on Cherry Lane. If we think of some others, let me know and I'll let Nick know. Okay. It is now 8:54, let's call it, and our meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.